Hi creators, welcome to Academic Phoenix Plus. My name is Monica and I'm here to show you a tutorial on how to create a droid. This video is brought to you by Autodesk in celebration of the makers. If you're into Star Wars and also how to make things, then this video is for you. So let's start with the basics. What is Autodesk? Autodesk is the design and make platform and the leading global technology and software company. Autodesk is how the world gets designed and made. I've used Autodesk for most of my tutorials, including modeling, UV mapping, texturing, rendering, lighting, everything. So it's a very powerful software and I couldn't recommend it enough. I don't know if you've heard, but there is a highly anticipated Star Wars series called the Acolyte, which will actually introduce a cute little chipper handheld repair droid called Pip. Pip was developed by creature effects legend Neil Scanlon, who used Autodesk Fusion software to bring the lovable droid to life. Catch the 2-episode premiere in the newest Star Wars original series, The Acolyte, streaming June 4th on Disney+. To honor Pip's debut in The Acolyte, Lucasfilms and Autodesk, a global leader in technology and software for design and make industries, are teaming up to launch a limited-time droid design contest. I'm hoping my tutorial will inspire you to submit your own droid. Fans can also go to Autodesk.com/droid to submit their own designs for a chance to win a special grand prize, including a trip to and guided tour of the Lucasfilm headquarters in San Francisco, California, my neighborhood, and the Walt Disney Studios lot in Burbank, California. I've been to those two places, and those are really cool places that you should definitely visit. This trip also includes a meet and greet session with the Lucasfilm executive on site. You can choose a path between the Jedi Master and the Padawan, which is for students. And you also want to decide what type of droid type you're going to make. Are you going to do mechanical droid, which should use Autodesk Fusion, or you're going to make the animate droid from Maya and 3ds Max? If that is me, I shall be making my droid using Maya. For more information, take a look at autodesk.com/droid. I am creating my own design. Is going to be really fun. I'm excited to show you guys my droid, starting from modeling all the way to texturing and lighting. All right, let's go ahead and get started in creating our droid. All right, this is going to be super fun. Let's start off with creating a project. We're going to go to project window. I'm going to call it my healing droid and then accept. My droid's going to be rounded corners. I have it all thought in my head, so I'm going to be playing around. But in this scenario right now, I'm just kind of grabbing a regular cube and beveling it and shaping it because this is going to be the main body. For this little droid, I am thinking Star Wars, I'm thinking medical, and I'm thinking super cute. So in this case, right now, I am adding edges to make sure that my droid is going to have nice soft corners. And I want to make sure he's cute, so I'm making him a little bit bulbous. And I feel like his body's good, so let's move on to the arms. I'm going to start working on the shoulder. This is the cylinder. I removed the cap, I reduced the subdivisions, and I am going to add an edge and then extrude. This is kind of like my workflow when it comes to creating mechanical objects. Next, I want to make sure everything is beveled because bevel is so important when it comes to supporting your edges and also for mechanical. So I'm going to do a Control B. And then I'm going to work with my segments to make sure this is nice and clean. And sometimes I need to just add my own. So I use insert edge loop to add the edge that I need to make sure it looks good. Now, sometimes I do need to finagle my bevels to make sure it's looking good. And then there we go. That inner face, I'm probably going to delete. It is an N-gon, but right now I'm going to just keep it for now. Next, I need to make it look like it's actually a moving part. So I extrude it inward, then I extrude it outward, and now I have this really cute shoulder joint. And of course, always bevel your edges. All right, there we go. Just like that. Super fast, magical, super fun. All right, let's place it in there, and I'm going to finagle it a little bit because I'm trying to figure out how big do I want this shoulder to be. Now I feel like the body could use a little bit more love, so I'm turning symmetry, and I always get symmetry wrong. Is it Z? Is it Y? Is it X? I don't know. I've never figured it out, but I always have to hit all three before I get it right. So I got it right, added some edges, and now I'm putting the joint where it needs to be, and then I am ready to move on to the arm. To create the top of the arm, I'm going to be using a torus. I'm going to reduce the geometry and delete half of it so that I can get an arc. I'm also going to delete the inner faces because I don't need them. What I need is just the top. So here I am selecting faces, and then flatten them out so they're nice and even, and then I am ready to flatten them out. The trick to flattening something out is scale. Just grab one of the handles and scale it towards the center, and then you are good. extrude outward, and you can see, or downward in this case, and you can see now that I have this really cool looking arc. Nice. I am going to go ahead and extrude that edge and bring it in because I don't need to have it blocked. I'm going to put a piece there. Here, I'm just moving my vertices around to match more of the left side as well as the right side. So it's a little bit more even. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and snap it into place. Adding those values manually, sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's confusing, but as you can see, I finally got the right values, and now I am placing the shoulder, the top of the shoulder, onto the mechanical arm. So there you go. He's already starting to come together. How cute is he? Now I am trying to figure out the scale. Should I make him smaller? Should I make it bigger? And I actually decided to make it bigger because I feel like bigger means cuter. And I'm trying to go for a cute robot. But Star Wars theme. The idea is that this little guy is going to walk around, follow you around, trying to give you bandages and stuff like that. Kind of like almost useless robot, but he's also handy. He's a medical kit that walks around trying to help. Alright, so I duplicated the shoulder and put it at the bottom, just scaled it down so that I can use it for the bottom of the arm. And then I also created a cube and deleted some faces because I don't need those faces. And I went ahead and placed it in there so it looks like it will fit. Now, I am pressing the number 3 on my pieces to make sure that they look good. And it also shows me that when I do a mesh smooth, everything is going to look good because I'm going to make this into a little bit of a higher poly geometry. Again, I like to delete faces that I know are not going to be seen. And then in this case, I'm going to go ahead and bevel it again because I want to make sure that those bevels, those edges are being supported. So you're going to see a lot of beveling in this video tutorial. There he is. That's his arm. He's looking cute. Now, you can't have a robot without gears. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and build another gear. I'm going to be using tons of cylinders in this tutorial. And I'm reducing my cap to 0, and I'm also increasing my subdivision to 3. Subdivision height to 3 so that I can use that to help develop some edges. So in this case, I'm actually going to use bevel. I'm going to bring in the fraction, but instead of for beveling edges, I'm actually using that indentation to create an indentation. Now, one of the challenges with cylinders by removing the cap is we get an end-on. So I'm going to be spending a couple of minutes here cleaning it up with the multi-cut. I just want to make sure everything is a quad because everything looks better with a quad. Then I'm going to insert an edge around the corner, and of course turn on symmetry to make sure the left side and the right side. And I wish I had done that earlier. I did not do that nice geometry on the other side, so I'll have to fix it later, but that's okay. I can always mirror it. Always take a look at your models, make the changes and tweaks as you go along. You want to make sure everything looks good. So I moved that vertex into place, and now I have my object. Now, I didn't like the way it was bending, so I'm going to create another edge on the edges and then extrude that inward as well so that when I press 3, it looks like gears. Now I'm going to be trying to figure out the scaling. Do I want this to be big? Do I want this to be large? Do I want this to be small, thin? You know, I'm trying to figure it out. So it's part of the learning process or the exploration of this. But as long as it's got a cylindrical object so it feels like it can rotate. Now I have to warn you guys, I'm not a mechanical engineer. I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to machines. I'm just kind of looking at references and being like, okay, it looks like it needs joints, it needs something to rotate, so on and so forth. I grabbed this sphere, I was trying to cut it in half. It didn't work lengthwise, so I just decided to go ahead and go horizontal, delete that bottom faces. And then I have this, what I'm calling it a jewel, but it's almost like an energy glass. Again, this is a medical robot and it's going to have some decor. So I'm grabbing those edges and extruding outward. And then I am going to grab the outer edges and bring them in. As always, I like to provide supporting edges, increase my segments, and I'm going to push one of the edges in so it feels like it's indented, and now I have a little kind of like a jewel, like an oval jewel in the shoulder, just to make it a little bit more interesting. I'm planning to make that look like glass. It's gonna make sense. It makes sense in my head. Hopefully it'll make sense when I actually create this. Now here I am spending some time labeling. We all love watching creators label, so feel free to skip this part, but I feel like labeling is important. I do label most of them, and at the end I kind of give up. But I do recommend and encourage you guys to label everything, because especially if you work in the industry, everything needs to be labeled according to their naming conventions. So just get comfortable with it. But I'm going to go ahead and label this, and of course it is probably the most boring part of the process for me, for you, but it's important. All right, moving on, let's go ahead and start creating another part of the robot, or the droid, the Star Wars droid. And I felt that since I started working on the arm, I felt like it still needed to have that personality, that charm. I decided to create the eye. I'm gonna make it a little bit asymmetrical, where I'm going to bevel those edges and make sure that it doesn't collapse on itself, which is really important in this case. So bevel and give them a little bit of fraction, so when you press the number 3, it looks good, which is the smooth preview, and rotate it. So that's going to be his eye right there. So I wanted to make it look more human, and I felt like it was kind of cute. I want this robot to be a little bit more asymmetrical. A lot of droids in Star Wars are asymmetrical. They're not even on either side. So I wanted to have one eye, and then the other side's going to be more like a button. So in this case, I started to develop this design. Now, for whatever reason, it took me a long time to clean this up. I'm not sure why it took me so long to figure this one out. I was having some issues with the multi-cut tool. So as you can see, it created this really random triangle. So then I had to delete it, and then I had to turn off symmetry and create my own edge. And then I had, so it took me a while to figure out how to clean this up so that it would bevel correctly. At the end, I ended up just beveling myself because it just wasn't working as well as I would have liked, but that's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and delete that corner because I'm not a big fan of edges that go diagonal, especially when something that's mechanical like this. Again, I'm spending too much time on this, but still at the end result is gonna end up pretty nice. Now, if you ever need to flatten anything, just double click and scale. That's always the best way to make something go to a straight line. Here I am creating my own bevel by grabbing those vertices and pushing them back. Go ahead and insert my own personal edges because I felt like the bevel tool was not working as well as I would like. So I'm going to go ahead and add those edges to make sure that's supported. And there you go. That's a very simple piece, but I spent a lot of time on it, which I thought was kind of funny. But there you go. That's how it's going to look like for the little robot. A little asymmetry. All right. So now that I have that, the next part is going to be the leg. So I'm going to grab the shoulder piece and I'm going to delete those bottom faces. And the reason why is because I am going to mirror it. So move that pivot point to the bottom by clicking on the letter D. And then you're going to use the mesh mirror to mirror it to the other side. It's just a fast way of doing this. Now, the trick is to make sure that you're not using world, that you're using object. And the other trick is to explore this. I'm sure somebody out there knows exactly how everything fits, but in this case, it's going to be a positive Z. But I always have to explore and figure it out. Okay, is it this one? Is it this one? Is it this one? Eventually, I'll figure out the mirroring. And then we have this shape. I'm starting to produce this top of the leg, and the tricky part about this one is how to make it feel that this machine can actually in fact hold weight. So theoretically these robots have machines, but they're advanced. I guess they're advanced machines, also supposed to be carrying medical supplies, so it's got to have some weight. So I just want to make sure that all of that fits in this world. I tried to remesh this because I was hoping for a shortcut. Didn't work. So, you trial and error, and then I go back to the classic, okay, let me grab the multi-cut tool and recreate this. So it takes a couple of minutes. Not really. It takes a little bit of time to just quickly make this, but, I was just hoping. And you'll notice that I forgot to turn on symmetry again. So I deleted that face, and I'm going to use the magical tool called mirroring. So let's go to mesh mirror. Let's figure out which one it is, but first I'm going to move the pivot point to the center and then try it. So in this case, it was a Y positive. All right, now I have a fancy cylinder that has proper topology. It's got quads, and now I am creating basically the gear for this piece. All right, it's coming along. I am trying to figure out how this gear is going to fit and what type of feet should I use. Should I use treads? Should I use wheels? And I decided that a lot of the droids in Star Wars have like these cute little triangle feet and they kind of waddle, and that's how I envision him in my head. I just want him to kind of waddle behind you with like, I have a band-aid. So that's what I came up with. So I'm going to create his little waddling feet. And in this case, it's going to be triangular. I'm going to place it and grab some vertices and just kind of move it around. Again, the trick here is to figure out, can these feet carry this much weight? So depending on the animation, of course, and depending on how big and how large this character is. You'll notice that I tried to, when I pressed the number 3, it kind of collapsed on itself. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect some faces, edges, and then I'm going to bevel. So again, beveling is a great way to keep your topology nice and clean, and everything is going to look as best as possible. As I mentioned before, I'm not a mechanical engineer, so I'm not really sure how these pieces are supposed to fit together, but I'm going to go ahead and try to support my little foot here to make sure that it can handle some weight. Thank goodness for undo, my favorite tool, and then play around with the scale. So the idea is that this gear is moving this foot. I just like the idea that it's gonna like waddle around behind. I don't know. Can you guys just hear it? Just going beep, 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 beep. All right, I'm gonna duplicate this because I do want it to have like something that it can rotate with in case it needs to move. So this is kind of like a back tire that it's gonna have, where it can lift up its feet and maybe roll forward. It's just another gear and something to make it more interesting to look at. It looks good in my head. So we'll see when it gets textured. I thought the foot was looking a little plain, so I'm going to go ahead and create an edge, and I'm going to extrude this in because I've noticed that a lot of droids in Star Wars, you can see the mechanics. There's a lot of coverage, but they also have a lot of pipes and wires sticking out of it, and that's kind of like the look that I want. I want it to fit in the world of Star Wars. So I'm going to select those side faces and delete them and then duplicate them. Again, I'm going to be UV mapping all this, so I want to try to UV map as little faces as possible. So the idea behind this is that this is going to be little tubes. It's kind of like a mechanical way of making it appear that it's functional and lives in the Star Wars world. How cute is that? There's the foot. Do you feel like it could carry it? I think it could. All right, I'm creating another cylinder and then also dividing or reducing the axes, subdivision axes, and also rotating it. And this part's probably the more complicated piece that I built for here. It's because I'm going to be adding some subdivision heights so that I can use them to delete them. I'm going to bring these edges out a little bit, if I select the right ones, of course. And what I'm going to do is select faces so that I can create a gear. So this is going to be the one that rotates around the mechanical. Anyway, I don't even know how to say it in engineering, but basically this is going to be the one that rotates while holding the device. The magical tool that I'm using is called Bridge. And don't forget to increase your division so that it matches the number of edges on the other piece, which is what I'm doing here. And then I want to make sure that they all fit because I'm going to start bridging this side too. So I'm going to select my edges and then I am going to bridge. So you can also select multiple edges at once. And then I'm going to click on the letter G, which is my last command, and my last command was bridging. So it actually goes and bridges. Here we go again. I am going to have some triangles, but I'm going to keep those triangles in areas that people are not really going to see. So I feel like that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and extrude a little bit to give it a little bit more depth. I will have to clean that topology. And then I do want to bevel those edges because I want to make sure that my edges are supported. And then I'll notice that, gosh darn it, I have an end gone in a very important place. So I'm going to go ahead and use the multi-cut tool, turn on symmetry. Again, I got to guess which is the right symmetry and go across here. In retrospect, it might have been better if I had gone down and across to the other side because I'm sure the same issue is on the other side, but I can always fix it later, especially when I UV map. All right, so there we go. That's a device that's supposed to move and rotate around. And the next part is I wanted to have a little drawer or a little extrusion so that something's sticking out of it, like pipes or tubes or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and select those faces, delete them, and then grab those edges and extrude. Now I can't flatten it, so I'm going to rotate it. So press the letter D, rotate the pivot point, and then you'll be able to scale uniformly in whichever direction you want. It's really neat. I'm going to duplicate those holes that I made earlier, and they have the proper topology at the edges. So I'm going to go ahead and move that. And its purpose is basically to be able to hold something. What it's going to hold, I'm not sure. I'm trying to figure that part out. I'm thinking gauze. I'm just kind of winging it, but I really wanted to make it feel like this is like a first aid kit that's walking around. What are the basic things in first aid kits? Usually it's gauze, usually it's got gloves, it's got sprays, it's got, Advil, it's got all sorts of stuff. So I want to make sure that I provide those things. Right now it looks like a little mini tank, but eventually it's going to hold something medical. And I'm hoping with my texturing, it's going to help read that as well. Okay, I'm basically done with the arm. So I'm going to group it, duplicate it, and then scale it at a -X. I'm going to do the same thing with the leg. It's a little trick that I like. Instead of mirroring it, I just duplicate it and change the scale X to a -1, and it flips it based on the pivot point at the center. So make sure your object is in the origin. That's going to make it all better. And there you go. I have the left side and the right side. Now everything is still very symmetrical except for the eyes. So I am going to be making some adjustments. But overall, that is the basic shape of the character, and he's coming along. How cute. Look at him. I'm here to help. I'm here to help. Since Star Wars has a lot of little pieces on their machines and antennas and lights and all sorts of stuff, I'm going to create a tiny little light here. Press F to focus, and I'm going to reduce the edges and start extruding. As you can see, this is going to be very small. It's very low poly, and it's going to help read that this is a machine that maybe has some flashing lights to say, hey, this is urgent. So I'm going to duplicate this one and move it aside because I feel like it probably will have two of them. So you can see the bottom edges collapse. So let's go ahead and insert some bottom edges to support those things. So when I press the number 3, everything's looking much better. Now these are small details, so I'm not too worried about it. I do want to make sure that they do have enough information though when I start texturing it. All right, there we go. Now I feel like the back of the arm needs a little bit of information, and Star Wars they all seem to have antennas. So all the little droids. So I'm going to add an antenna to the back of the arm. I'm going to make it fit it into the back of the arm, and then I'm going to start extruding because I'm going to create a little antenna for this little droid. So all of them have antennas. They actually have multiple antennas. I guess they have a certain purpose for everything, but in this case, this is going to be an antenna that communicates with whoever. I'm not sure, but this little droid is ready for anything. Again, as you can see, I'm creating supporting edges, and it's coming along. It's very cute. Now antennas can't be too, the Star Wars world has a lot of details, so I'm going to go ahead and make this antenna a little bit more interesting to look at by breaking up the silhouette by extruding those edges. And there you go. Now I have a little antenna. Beep, 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 beep. Okay, now let's remember that the bottom started looking didn't look so hot, so I'm going to go ahead and add those edges again to support the edges. And there we go. Let's extrude that in a little bit, bring it out, and now I have a antenna. Now this is a medical droid. I'm going to use the antenna. I'm going to delete those top faces, grab those edges, and I'm going to give this robot a little shot. I've always felt like every healing robot suddenly pops up with a shot. Like, hey, I've got I think it's morphine, that's my guess, or maybe antibacterial or something. So I'm going to create a needle to make sure that it fits into this medical world. So here I am extruding, adding edges where I need it so that it looks like a needle. There we go. As you can see that it's looking more like a pencil or like a marker. So let's go ahead and grab some edges. And this time I'm going to bevel. In some cases, I create my own bevels. And in other cases, I have a tendency to use the beveling edge. Again, it's up to you as an artist. I'm going to make something really thin. Since it's so thin, I'm going to make it very low poly and go ahead and create the needle. Da, 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 da. There it is. Does that feeling more medical to you guys? All right, it's looking good. But I didn't like the way the bottom, yeah, I'd rather have it aligned so it feels like they are connected. Okay, so now we have a needle. So if that doesn't scream medicine, I don't know what will. As I mentioned before, I felt that the droids in the Star Wars world have a lot of antennas, so I decided to create another thinner antenna. Again, I'm not sure what the purposes of all these antennae are, but I do know that they provide a service. So I'm going to guess that this little robot's going to have multiple reasons to communicate with whoever. So I'm going to create a small thin antenna next to the lights. So this could be a communication tower. This could be maybe another robot. I'm sure there's multiple purposes, but the idea is that I'm going to create a little antenna to help communicate with and make it feel more like the Star Wars world. There we go. Teet, 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 teet. I'm here to help you. Come here, I have a shot. Like, no, stay away from me. So when I started working on this, I was like, you know, it'd be really cute if it had a little drawer and it popped out all these pills and you can just kind of pick it and choose. And I actually did all of this effort. And then eventually I thought it really ruined the design of the character because my character's kind of smooth, everything's smooth. And then I made it this cubic mouth where the drawer came out. And I just didn't like it. And I thought he just made it look like a little too human with the mouth. So I decided to undo it. So I'm going to fast forward through this part because you guys don't need to see me struggling. I'm going to move on. So by making this cabinet, and I keep saying cabinet, it's actually a drawer. I'm going to extrude inward and then I am going to bevel all the edges because again, I wanted to have supporting edges. I'm going to scale it to make sure that it fits in the mouth. I am going to go back to a previous version that it doesn't have a mouth, but right now I'm just really working on making sure that this little drawer works. Now I thought it looked cute for a second, but then I also thought it just looks like a mouth and I don't know, I wasn't convinced. So I decided to just go ahead and skip it. The next part is what am I going to put in this drawer? So I decided to make a pill. I just grabbed a low poly cylinder and stretched it out and removed that center edge so that it's straight. And now I have a really easy pill. And I'm going to go ahead and stack them inside the drawer. Now I'm making them pretty large so that you can see them when I render it out. I'm going to go ahead and select those and duplicate them. So Control D. And then I also felt that one level just didn't make any sense. So I went ahead and grabbed all of the rest of the pills and then duplicated them so they were stacking. Every single first aid kit that I've had has those little alcohol swabs. You can disinfect some things. So I went ahead and did those. I extruded them. I beveled the edges. But anytime I pressed the number 3, it would turn into like this really soft circle. And I didn't like that, like a coin. So I continued to bevel those edges and it still didn't work. I was still having a surprisingly amount of issues with this. Eventually I figured out that it was the corners. So I grabbed those other corners and then I beveled it. And then I wasn't really convinced by the look of it when I pressed the number 3. So I was just like, wait a minute, it's a very small object and I'm probably not going to smooth it. So I was just like, I'll just leave it like this. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it in and then duplicate them. Thinking back to it, I probably should have deleted all those beveled edges. The next part is basically rotating them and then making them look less mechanical. So right now everything's in a perfect order. To make it look a little bit more realistic, you don't want them in a perfect line. You want them to, like somebody stack them, right? So I'm rotating them and slightly moving them so everything looks a little bit more realistic because they're all moved around as if somebody stacked them. So straight lines takes away from the overall look of it. I decided that at this point that I didn't like the way the cabinet was looking, so I'm going to go ahead and scale it, rotate it, and instead of being a cabinet or a drawer, I keep saying cabinet, it's kind of weird, I am going to actually make it into a drawer so that he's holding it. It comes in and out of this little, would you call it a hand? I'm not sure. This little device. I'm going to isolate select so that I can see the bottom of the edges, and then that way I can scale it up so it's a little bit bigger so the drawer can fit inside the space. I also don't like the way the shapes are facing, so I'm going to go ahead and group them together, center that pivot, and then scale them where I need them to fit. And now our little packets are all there. Here we go, a little drawer with little pills and little swabs for everybody. I feel like it needs to be a little bit more asymmetric, so I'm going to bring this arm up a little bit so it feels like he's handing them off to you. Click on the letter D to move that pivot point, and then again rotate it. I'm going to grab that drawer and rotate it down so that it's flushed flat. I'm going to add a light, Arnold Light's Physical Sky, to see how it's looking, and I think he's looking really cute. So now it's time to take a look at this portion, which is the arm. I decided to actually rotate these things up because I want to have it hold something up for everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this, and because I wasn't really paying attention, my rotation got all messed up. So now I'm going to zero everything out and then try again. Now, other tools that first aid kits have is gauze. So that's the next step of this tutorial, is to actually create gauze. And gauze is made out of cloth. It's got a lot of layers to it. So what I'm going to do is actually go to the front view, and I'm going to grab an EP curve tool and make a spiral. And once I'm done, I'm going to move it forward, duplicate it, Control D, select both of them, and this time I'm going to be using a loft. This is under Surfaces tab. You can click Loft, and then you can see that I get a kind of like a swirl. Now the next part is converting it into a geometry. So modify, convert, NURBS to polygons, and make sure control point is selected. And then I'm going to go to Mesh Smooth, and there you go. I have a video tutorial on this specifically if you want to learn about NURBS. It's actually pretty fun. And there you go. I now have I have gauze. Hopefully it looks like gauze, not like toilet paper. I'm going to hope the material that I use is going to make it look like gauze. The next part is just a little bit of modeling when it comes to the handle. I'm going to grab those faces and extrude outward, and then provide a little bit of supporting edges to my objects so that, especially at the very end, so that when I press the number 3, it does not collapse. All right, there he is with his antennas, his shots, his little drawer is definitely starting to look a little bit more medical, which is my goal. Next, I want to create something like a spray, because no first aid kit should be without a spray. So in this case, I'm using a cube to create a spray bottle. If you're injured, he's just going to come in and go and press the little bottle so that you have a healing spray. So I am grabbing just a regular cube and extruding it so that I can get a bottle. Now you can't see the reference on this side, but I have a reference of a bottle that I'm trying to mimic. And then I press the number 3, and you can see that it's collapsing at some edges, but I do want it to be circular like this. So I'm just going to go ahead and provide some supporting edges. And then that way now I have a little spray bottle. I'm going to move that pivot point just for the sake of convenience, and then snap it into place. Now I'm trying to figure out where should the bottle be. Should it be like held up like a server? And then I decided that it might be better if it's being held, the bottle's being held by this device, and then there's going to be another device that's going to press it so that the mist comes out. So I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of edge loops. So grab those top faces, extrude, flatten them, and then extrude again. I'm going to grab those front faces as well, extrude, and then extrude again just to kind of give it that little soft corner. And now we have something that presses the spray, which I think is appropriate for this particular robot. So again, it's just about making it look like it has all of these little devices that comes in, offers you bandages and things like that. And there you go. That's basically my model. So now I'm going to go ahead and render it. I'm increasing my settings, increasing the intensity of the light, turning the camera visibility to 0 so there's no background. I added a plane, a circle, so it has somewhere to sit. And then I'm going to place it here and let it render. And there's my little robot. Make sure you turn on the resolution gate so that you can get a predictable render. And now we have my little robot. The next part of the video tutorial is going to be to texture it. I am going to UV map it on its own, so you guys don't have to actually watch me UV map. If you do want a tutorial, a step-by-step tutorial on how to UV map, just let me know in the comments and I will do it. But right now what I'm going to do next is UV map it on my own, and then I am going to show you in the next video tutorial how to texture it. We're going to be using Substance Painter to create all the textures for this little robot. And then I am going to show you how to do a final render. So it's a very exciting jam-packed tutorial. I hope you are enjoying it. I think he's adorable. I could probably add more, but I think at this point, this is a good place to stop. And the next part's gonna be making him look more like in the Star Wars world. He's gonna look medical, he's gonna look worn, and I have some plans for this little guy that makes him look really cute. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you learned a thing or two, please like and subscribe. That is your message to me, letting me know that you like this content and that you want to see more. Please share this content if you think that an artist just like you would like to learn how to create a medical droid. Please share my video. That would be amazing. It would make me really happy, and it would also help the YouTube algorithms. Take a look at academicphoenixplus.com. There you will find free resources such as 3D models, ebooks, and so much more. So take a look at academicphoenixplus.com. Again, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Keep creating, and I will see you next time as we texture this droid.
Autodesk. Make anything.